Hey guys, Kyle here. So, just before the show starts, I wanted to mention our Patreon. You can pay us $1 a month as a thank you, as a tip. You can pay $2 a month to get access to one of our bonus content shows, episodes 2 days early, and a secret Discord chat where all of our Patreon donors get to go and hang out and talk with us directly. Then there's a $5 tier that you can donate to get access to a whole bunch more content. We have multiple bonus episodes on there. So please check it out. Patreon.com/itgetsweird. We don't advertise, we don't make money. So check it out and throw some money if you think that would be cool. Thanks.
Welcome to It Gets Weird, our comedy show where we explore the unusual, the unbelievable, and the unexplained to try to make your world a little weirder. I'm Nile.
And I'm Kyle, and I'm here to gaslight Girl Boss and I forget the other ones, but I'm gonna do Gatekeep. I'm gonna do that one too. Gonna gaslight Niall into thinking something's wrong with his computer.
Yeah, that did literally just happen. I love that you bring this up now now that it's like 6 months out of date. It's now at the point where like the New York Times uses that stuff. Like we are beyond the pale now. Now it's all about gorgeous girls.
Well, Niall, I guess this is better. No better time than now to announce that I have been hired by SNL. So,
congratulations! I know you've really been angling for that one for a while.
Yeah, they were like, we've been looking for a podcaster who talks about conspiracies, and I said, oh my god, that's me.
Yeah.
And
you got an open call.
Yeah.
Did you go? You had to bring what? Like you have to bring in like 3 characters and go in front of Lauren and
yeah. I had to kiss Lauren's ring. Yeah, I did all of that, and I'm in.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
We'll have to work out. We were remote last week. Maybe which was last week when you were doing your audition. That's why we had to go remote.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's good that you're back, and we'll have to figure that out going forward with you being, spending most of the week in the I almost said the Great White Way, which is Broadway, not like New York in general. And I don't think 30 Rock is like on Broadway.
Well, that's an interesting thing. It's interesting that you should say that. I would like to also announce that I have joined the Broadway production of the Beetlejuice musical.
Ah, okay. Is that actually going on Broadway?
I don't know.
I think that was off Broadway. I'm waiting on a call back from Hamilton. So this week, Kyle.
Yes.
I wanted to go back in time just a little bit because we've talked about some kind of foundational UFO cases, but there's one that we haven't talked about that's not like, it's not the most famous or anything, but I feel like it kind of is one of those like it gets thrown in a lot of those like, weirdest fucking UFO case. Like it gets talked about in this way of like kind of infamy for the kind of tropes that it seemingly helped get off the ground in terms of alien abductions. So today, Kyle, we're going to talk about the abduction case of Antônio Villas Boas.
I
Boas?
Don't know if I know this one.
Okay.
I don't know how that's possible, but it doesn't sound familiar.
It's okay. So this one has kind of a weird history in terms of like its impact, because in some ways that's pretty impactful, and you'll find out why here in a little bit.
Okay.
But it also is like, it's not forgotten, but it's surprisingly not highly talked about. And I think there's some good reasons for it, which we'll talk about later. But it also was like weirdly popular for a little bit for a kind of stupid reason, which is basically like people didn't think that this was fake for a while because the guy that Antonio is a Brazilian Brazilian farmer, and people basically were just like, oh, a Brazilian farmer couldn't have made this up. Like there's literally like this weird stigma for like a while where people are like, this guy couldn't have like have the imagination to make this up.
Oh, it's more pedantic. I was just thinking like, elephants never forget. Brazilian farmers never lie. These are just things that we know. It's more.
No, it's literally like it's in the same vein as like, oh, Egyptians couldn't have built that shit. Like,
right.
It's like for some reason we just decide that if you aren't rich and American, you're kind of a dumbass,
Right.
and that sucks. But okay, so that's neither here nor there. The important thing about this, and the thing that is like most not relevant, but most notable about this case is, as far as I can tell, it's the first case of a human being fucking an alien.
Okay. Wait. Okay. So okay. Now let's define this
Yeah.
a little bit because the way you say it makes me think that like this person was like wanting to like okay. Hmm.
He did not look. He did not initiate.
Okay, so that was kind of what I was leading to is
Yes.
he did not, put the moves on, start the foreplay.
No, I've got a more detailed breakdown later, but like I figured I
Oh,
would set.
good.
I would start with we got all the moves,
Oh,
all the
shit.
how long he
I wa-
lasted,
I wanna
girth,
know,
all that kind
yeah.
of stuff.
I
the
want to know
yaw.
what they were listening to, like what their sex tunes were.
Yeah, keep that in mind. So
Oh,
we
fuck.
this is from 1957.
Okay.
So we are 4 years before Betty and Barney Hill,
Well
which
before
was
people
1961.
were having sex.
Yes. He invented sex. Sex was given to us by aliens
Oh,
through Antonio Villas Boas.
that's just incredible.
And so this is like pretty early in terms of actual abduction cases. There have been, of
Yeah.
course, have been UFO sightings and stuff before this. And, if you get into ancient aliens and everything, those go back millennia. But in terms of like modern UFO cases, this is pretty early in the like abduction.
The abductee situation was not really fully solidified in the canon until like the 60s, but this is also during like the late 50s flap. So but it's like it's pretty crazy to think though that like even back then before it was a big part of the culture, there was somebody who was talking about being abducted, let alone having sex with an alien. That's
Yeah.
it's pretty wild.
So this is like there were some kind of UFO cases in Brazil starting about 1954 or in areas around Brazil that kind of permeated the Brazilian consciousness. One of the early ones was in 1954 when in Venezuela. Um, and so this is kind of when Brazilian journalists started to like kind of get an interest in this kind of stuff, especially in the kind of there's a specific magazine that I think I have written down later that was kind of popular for sci-fi, alien, kind of like that kind of storytelling, both fiction and supposed investigation,
Mhm.
which will kind of play into stuff later. But this is what led this man in 1957, Antonio Villas Boas, to contact a journalist about his experience. So this kind of rash of UFOs in the late 50s kind of led to him coming out of the woodwork and saying, "Hey, I had this experience." Now, the journalist he contacted was How Martins, and Martins kind of paid for him. He was 23 years old to travel to Rio de Janeiro to be interviewed and looked at by a doctor to be examined because there was some kind of residual stuff from the actual abduction that we'll talk about in a little bit. And this
Hmm.
led to an article written by Martins that kind of put this into the public consciousness.
Okay.
So the actual encounter takes place over the course of about 3 days. Now, the abduction is all on one day, but the craft. So let me set the stage here. October of 1957.
Okay.
We are
Picturing
in
it.
São Francisco de Sales, Brazil. Antonio Villas Boas and his brother and their family all work on this farm. He has been studying law and is back kind of for the summer, I think, working or not summer, but like whatever. He's on break, effectively working at this farm, and he's 23 years old. And on October 14th, he and his brother are out working on the fields, and they're out just kind of doing their stuff on the farm.
Mhm. Farm
They're
stuff,
farming.
Brazilian farm stuff.
I keep wanting to say like tilling, like a specific thing. But I don't know what the fuck they were
tilling
doing.
the land, shucking the crops, learning the ways of the not lying.
Look, all I know is that there's a tractor involved because that comes into play later.
Okay.
Otherwise, they could have been doing anything. I don't know. They could have just been fucking downing Ham's light out in the fields for
And
all I know.
I would support that.
So it was very hot during the daytime, so this led to them kind of farming at night to try to beat the heat. So
Okay.
that's why they were out at night at this time. So they were out, and on the 14th they were kind of out in the fields, and they saw up in the sky what they described as a ball of red light that was so bright that they couldn't actually look at it directly.
Hmm.
Whenever they kind of tried to like go towards it, it would like kind of shoot away from them, almost as if it had some like reaction to their actions. Um, it eventually kind of emitted some beams of light in various directions and then sped off into the sky. And that
Okay.
was the whole first night. The first night was just seeing this
Just
light up in the sky. It dazzled some beams out and then ran away.
okay. So they're kind of, scouting the area for anybody that they deem, sexually attractive enough to get with.
Look, we all know about the song Roxanne,
Okay.
by now noted canceled musician Eric Clapton. Uh,
What? Wait.
nope, fuck. I'm confusing. I'm confusing. What is The Way You Look Tonight with fucking Roxanne?
Yeah, Roxanne is
Jesus Christ,
the
Roxanne
police, I
is the
believe.
police.
Uh, but
Who look, I look. Maybe Antonio could have taken some tantric tips from Sting,
yeah,
who's not Eric
and
Clapton.
honestly, Eric Clapton could probably take those tips too, just to like chill the fuck out. Maybe that would help with the
Yeah.
whole thing going on with him, whatever that is. Shouts out to Sting. And
Shouts
Eric
out to Sting and
Clapton,
not Eric
not
Clapton.
Eric Clapton. Shouts out, but like in a negative way.
Yeah, and like a keep the fuck away kind of way. I would talk to Sting. I wouldn't talk to Eric Clapton.
I would talk to Eric Clapton for funny reasons.
Okay.
I would want to hear him say his crazy bullshit.
If you could prank call Eric Clapton, what would you do?
Oh my god. I'd probably tell him that I would probably hit him with the classic your refrigerator's running.
Okay.
And he
Go
would,
oldie but a goodie.
yeah. Or I would like tell him that like I snuck like I vaccinated him in his sleep. or something like that.
Yeah, talk about how maybe the vaccine shedding is getting in the way. So this continued on October the 15th, the next day. They were this night. Antonio was out in the field alone, plowing at night, and at exactly 1 a.m, he saw what he described as a red star that looked just like the other kind of bright stars up in the sky. But it seemed to start getting larger as it was coming closer to him. In a matter of moments, it turned into, or he was able to find out that it was actually a glowing UFO, and it was egg shaped, and it was coming very fast in his general direction. Um, it was then like it got going so quickly that it was now over the tractor before he had any time to really react. It stopped about 50 meters above his head, and the tractor and the field were lit up as brightly as a sunny afternoon. The headlights of the tractor completely just were not visible with the light that was being shown by this UFO. Now, he then, of course, was frightened by this, so he started up the tractor and tried to start getting the fuck out of there, but the tractor was too slow, and so he eventually jumped off the tractor, ran across the field, and the UFO started to move again, and it was stopped about 10 to 15 meters from the tractor, so much closer, and slowly lowered itself to the ground. Um, and then a like huge bright red spotlight hit him directly in the face, blinding him almost entirely. And it got landing gear. 3 spikes came out of the egg-shaped craft and landed on the ground. The UFO is now on the ground.
Damn. I'm getting horny just picturing this.
I debated whether or not to open with the fucking,
I'm
but
sorry.
I feel like that's kind of the like when you look up anything about this case, it's like, oh,
That's
this
the
dude
thing
fucked an alien.
That's
So it seemed like that's the thing that you draw. You want to give people a
Yeah.
little bit of a taste of what's happening.
you want to give people a taste. You don't want to give me the.
I don't want to give you an excuse to not pay attention to the
I'm
story
paying-
up
hey,
until the point.
I'm paying attention, just not in the way you anticipate.
Yeah, that's fair. So yeah, the 3 spikes came down. It landed on the ground, and there was something on the top of it that also was glowing red and spinning incredibly fast. This color kind of changed as the rotation slowed.
Is-
Um, and it gave the impression of kind of a saucer or flat dome.
Okay, so I'm sorry, but I pictured like a little fun little boy's propeller cap
Yeah.
on top of this thing, which
Well, I
is
mean,
why I
when
was
that's like
chuckling.
spinning really fast, then that would create that
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
impression, you know?
yeah.
So, now this kind of kept rotating at least somewhat when the object like fully landed. So he then tried to turn in the opposite direction of the craft and run away. Uh, the kind of the tractor would not start when he tried to start it up again and seemed to be entirely sapped of energy. Like you know how like you get a lot of electromechanical.
Yeah.
So that's why he ran away. Sorry.
Okay.
The UFO seemed to have made the tractor inoperable.
Okay. Okay. And then it just like beamed directly onto him.
Yes. So as he started to run away, this being came out of the craft dressed in
Okay.
like gray coveralls and started to come after him, and it caught up to him and like knocked him off balance, and he fell down on the ground.
Wait, so this alien like fucking ran him down and slugged him?
Basically, yes.
Wha-
And
Okay.
at that point,
That's
three other creatures dressed the same way, humanoids. They say creatures, but they are humanoid. I think we get a more detailed description of some of them later,
okay.
but they are this main description is like shorter humanoid, like a meter and a half, so like under 5 feet.
Okay.
Um, and uh, in like gray coveralls.
Man, you know, maybe 1950s is too early to like fucking alien that looks like a cephalopod.
Yeah, it is a little early for like non-humanoid
Yeah.
relations, because
All
like Star
right.
Trek was still like pretty early.
That's yeah,
Yeah.
fair enough.
So uh three other of these creatures came up and actually lifted him up off the ground, and he tried to like kick out, call for people, curse them, yell at them to get them to release, and they of course just continued carrying him to the craft. um he said that they started, instead of like speaking in any kind of discernible language, they made like barking sounds. So like imagine like four short kings picking you up off the field where you're trying to get your work done, carrying you to a UFO while barking at you.
And all you're thinking is I'm going to have sex with that one later.
I don't think he was thinking that at this point.
Can you bark for me?
Yes, this is a very early puppy play incident.
Oh, Jesus.
No. Um, yeah, so they dragged him to the UFO, which was like up on the three legs, and there was like a metal ladder that they climbed into the craft. They had to like drag him up this like almost like ladder. They describe it as like being both stairs and a ladder. Like it's kind of just this like weird entryway mechanism thing, and they kind of have to drag him up. But this thing is kind of like elastic and movable a bit, so it doesn't make a lot of sense to me, frankly, how they get him in here. It just seems like they should have just like thrown him or something, but they have to like climb this weird like squishy ladder is how it feels.
Okay, that's very strange.
Yeah, he tried to like fight back, and they just like finally had to like tug him into the whole thing, and he now was inside this small square room. There was a flickering light coming from the ceiling, and all of the walls seemed to be polished metal. And the light was coming from this like four-sided light bulb that was not in the ceiling but kind of up, hanging near it. They just kind of dropped him on the floor, and all the like the opening of the craft and everything just slammed shut, making a seamless wall. And a total of 5 figures are now here with him. They motioned for him to follow, and he really had no choice but to follow them. And they entered another room that was kind of semi-oval in shape, but larger than the first one. And the walls were still like this shiny material. And he thinks that this was like the center of the UFO. because in the middle of it there was a like massive column that kind of narrowed in the middle.
Hmm.
And
Oh, okay.
he's basically saying that he doesn't think that it looks like it was for just decoration. It seemed to serve some purpose.
Right.
So he thinks this is like the center of it. That is there's some mechanism involved here.
Anti-gravity generator or
Yeah.
some shit.
Uh, and there are a bunch of swivel chairs in the rooms that are just kind of empty at that point, and they yeah they like were still holding on to him and kind of jerking him around and kind of leading him. I do I need to start being very careful with the words I say.
I'm sorry, you've put me in like elementary school or like humor mode here.
Well, here, well, this will be your first little payoff.
Okay,
At this
cool.
point, all
Excellent.
5 of these people started undressing him.
Nice.
And as he started to fight back and shout at them and swear at them and everything, they stopped for a minute, and like tried to like give him some sort of like. He read it as them trying to like make some sort of like nice, like empathetic eye contact. Like he because they're not like he can't understand them in any way, shape, or form. But he's trying to like read their looks a bit in his
Sure.
recollections. And that he's like it seemed like they were trying to be polite is how he describes it, which is kind of interesting.
Okay.
But that of course didn't stop them from removing all of his clothing. They didn't tear anything or cause him any pain. So he was just basically naked and scared, or naked and afraid, if you want to
Right.
cite the hit TV show. Now, one of them came up to him holding what seemed kind of like a wet washcloth and started to like rub his body over with a transparent, viscous fluid that didn't have any smell. He thought it felt like some kind of oil, but it didn't make his skin oily. It just was like that kind of like viscosity,
Yeah.
Uh, the the liquid made him even more cold than he already was, but it did dry very quickly.
For this next part, we're going to need you to be really slimy.
Yeah. Which like you if you try to figure out what all this is and like figure out like the course of events here, that it almost seems like this was some sort of like purification, like some way to like clean him, because he is about to be like, with what comes next,
Sucked
it
and
makes some
fucked.
sense that they would want him to not be like not really going to contaminate
Okay.
the the lady that he's about to fuck. So
You were so delicate that whole time.
look, sometimes it's hard. Okay, if you got to be pure before your hybridization experiments. There,
Right.
we'll go with that.
Oh.
So the 3 of these these creatures lead him to a door opposite the one that he entered through, and they touch something in the middle of the door, and it kind of opened like almost Star Trek style. This was when he saw this group of red glowing symbols that he has at certain points throughout. He has stood by this story until he died in like the early 90s. But like early on, when he was first kind of putting everything out there, he did try to recreate these symbols and draw them. You can find them online. I didn't really copy them down because they're nothing.
Doesn't go anywhere.
It's just
Yeah.
they're nothing.
It's just
They're-
like these are weird UFO symbols that I think I saw.
yeah, there's nothing really to relate them to, as far as I can tell.
Okay.
So if you want to find these, you can find the symbols if you want to, or at least his recreations of them. Then 2 more of the creatures came in and took him into another small room, and he was left alone in this room that had seemingly no entrance, exit, markings on the wall, literally anything, just like a very polished, unremarkable space. Suddenly, the wall opened again, and 2 aliens entered. In their hands were quite thick red rubber tubes that were over a meter long. One of the hoses was attached to a goblet-shaped glass vessel, and the other end was a nozzle that looked like a glass tube. They applied it to the skin of his chin, where he claims to still have a scar, or when he wrote this, still has a scar. And they seemingly took, using this kind of tube goblet mechanism, they drew blood from his chin.
Very weird place to do it. And can I just say, bizarre specific details like this are a thing that like you just do not find in UFO encounter stories anymore. This is like the shit that got me into UFOs as a kid, was the books where it would just be like these really bizarre and specific detailed encounters
Yeah.
and abductions. Like it's you just don't get this anymore.
Yeah, basically all of the like a lot of these specifics are pretty prevalent in most accounts of this, but I found one that came from someone interviewing Antonio like 6 months after the story broke.
Mhm.
So it's still pretty fresh, and this it was the most thorough accounting that I found of it,
Mm,
and became where I kind of like got most of the information about the actual encounter.
mm.
So yeah, a lot of places will say they like nicked his chin and took blood samples, but this has like a little more oomph
The
to it, a
weird
little more detail.
goblet
Yeah,
tubes.
because he said that they took like half of the mug full of blood from his chin for
What the
some reason.
fuck? That is just the word. I mean, I guess they're aliens, so they wouldn't know. But like,
Yeah, like maybe that's where a good vein is for them.
yeah,
I don't know. So they then stopped their work and took some more blood from the other side of his chin. So I guess like on both sides.
okay.
Uh, and, and left with a full mug. So
Oh
they
my
got a full fucking
god.
like pint of chin blood
You got to
here.
give this man some orange juice before you do anything else to him.
Yeah, they then left him in this room for about half an hour. And so he laid on this like cot that was kind of left in the room that had a kind of padding that he said felt like a kind of like a soft styrofoam that was covered in like a thick gray cloth. And after about half an hour, he noticed that a kind of unusual smell he started to smell something, and it seems like they had pumped in some sort of smoke that or gas that made him very very ill.
Oh,
He started to notice these like small metal tubes coming out from the walls at the bottom, and at actually bottom and top that were pushing this kind of hazy gray smoke into the room, and it he just started like puking,
oh god.
like made him very ill. Um, and then after he puked for a while and everything, it just kind of dissipated, and he was done with that. Like he then notes, I was extremely depressed. What else does fate have in store for me? Like
Oh
he's been
man,
through a lot already.
that's pretty weird, but you know,
Yeah.
it's very strange.
So here's where he gives a bit more of a description of what these creatures were. He said all of them were equally dressed in white metal scale tight fitting suits. Each of them also wore a wide belt with a reddish glowing circle on the front. On their heads, they wore large opaque helmets with small cutouts at eye level, which were covered with glasses that looked like glasses. Their five fingered hands were encased in thick, single colored gloves, which seemed to hinder hand movements. And at the back, from a small bulge on the back, two straight metal tubes emerged, which extended upwards, joining the helmet on both sides. Now, this feels like a spacesuit kind of thing to
Yeah,
me.
they're fucking kitted up.
Yeah. Um, and so he said, like, this was what most of them were kind of dressed like. But after this whole like puking ordeal and everything, uh, a door on the side of the room opened, and in walked a naked woman.
Sure.
Now, uh, this woman was, he said, was very beautiful, but a very different beauty from any woman he had met. Her hair was soft and light, and even very light, as if bleached, but was parted in the middle. She had large almond-shaped blue eyes, and her nose was very straight. She had unusually high cheekbones that gave her face a peculiar shape, which was much wider than that of the Indian woman of South America.
Okay. All right.
There you go.
Okay.
Uh, hi- her sharp chin made her face look triangular. She
Okay.
had thin, slightly prominent lips, and her ears, which he didn't see until later, were exactly the same as those of Earth women.
Okay. So somebody spent a little extra time in the Dark Souls character creator.
This really does feel like because there aren't a lot of really super identifying details other than like high cheekbones and like pointy
Yeah.
chin.
Yeah.
Like there isn't that like Star Trek alien like either change in skin color or a single prosthetic
It
that makes them stand out.
yeah, it's like we gotta find a woman who looks elven to
Yeah.
we don't have time for prosthetics and makeup on this episode. We're running behind. We gotta get like somebody who looks funky
Yeah.
and throw them in here. Okay. Well, I mean, I guess for him that's probably better than having to bump uglies with like an insectoid being like a mantis alien or something.
Yep.
That would be fucked up.
So it's at this point that the alien comes up and hugs him, and he
Okay.
seems to he basically says that he thinks the liquid that they rubbed all over him is what led to him getting like aroused.
Okay.
And yeah, then she
Have
they
you
moan
can
down.
go ahead and say it. Yeah. Why doesn't anybody ever get to do the before sex stuff with an alien? You ever think about that?
Yeah, there
Why
isn't.
don't they get to like tongue kiss or like heavy petting with the alien?
He straight up says the woman didn't kiss him, but instead would nip him on the chin. A lot of chin
What the
play with
fuck?
these aliens. Um,
Okay, I
so
guess that's their thing.
she had white hair basically everywhere, like bleached like platinum blonde, except for under her arms and her pubic hair were
Okay.
like bright red.
Interesting.
And this, like, some people have tried to take this into there's a certain type of like red haired aliens that I forget exactly the name of, and I've tried to like link it with this, but then like it's only her pubic and arm hair.
Well, she could be bleaching.
She could it could be bleached platinum blonde hair, you
Why
know?
doesn't anybody ever finger blast an alien? Nobody ever does that.
To be fair, Antonio doesn't seem to really be given the choice here.
I guess that's fair.
That he was just kind of dragged into this craft and presented with a woman that he had to then bone
All
down.
right, so we got him through the clear gel test. Yep, check that off. Yeah, we
He's been in the puke room.
we put we put him through the vomitorium.
Yeah.
Time to have sex.
So yeah, like they then have sex, and he makes this kind of weird he says this weird thing that I think is just kind of funny.
I can't wait for when this
Um
is.
he says I prefer women with whom I can talk and who understand me.
Well, sure.
I would not change any of our women for her. She made only grunting noises, which completely baffled me. I was terribly angry.
I mean, it's like, hold on.
Yeah.
I look. Yes, I had sex with a beautiful alien woman. I didn't enjoy it that much, though. Is the thing. Like she didn't talk. She didn't say any of that stuff that I find so fun either. Like when I'm.
Yeah.
So it's almost like he's saying like, yes, we had sex, and the journalist is high fiving him like, congrats on the sex,
Yeah.
and he's just like, no, I wasn't that into it.
Yeah. They rub some gel on me, which I think is why I was able to perform. Yeah, no, they straight up like when they're done, this is another kind of weird thing. The alien kind of rubs her belly and motions
Oh,
upwards, like
yeah,
points upwards.
I've heard that somewhere before. I've heard that specific detail before.
And this is another place that we get master translator Antonio. He thinks that he interprets that as meaning that she's going to take the child they just conceived and raise it on her planet.
yeah,
And so that is like totally the thing of like, this is very much an if you believe this and you also don't contribute like ancient aliens, which I kind of hold as a different thing, this is like one of the first cases of alien human hybridization in
Yeah.
abduction lore.
yeah, and I think you can kind of draw a line between something like this and ancient aliens, like because ancient aliens ultimately presupposes that either aliens like came here and like helped us
Mhm.
and did these things, or we are aliens in
Yeah.
a way. So, and yeah, this is just like, I mean, this is straight up X-Files style. Like Scully gets abducted and like has a baby put into her from an alien,
Yeah.
like that type of shit.
Yeah. So after this thing happens, he seems to get the impression that like the woman didn't really like was doing this kind of out of a duty, not really out of like an enjoyment kind of thing. And he seems to get the impression that the whole reason this happens is because, and I quote, a good stallion
Oh,
for
Jesus.
the
Okay.
for the humanoids.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, that will not be a good stallion will not be the title of this episode.
I don't know, man.
Now, he then is given back his clothing, and the other humanoids just like take him on a tour of the ship because I guess that's like a little post-coital
Yeah,
tour.
that's their practice, is just like walking around
Yeah.
and hanging out.
So in this tour, he attempts to take he describes it as a clock-like device from this room that they go into, but they catch him and prevent him from taking it because he wanted to bring evidence effectively. He then was escorted off the ship and was able to watch as it took off, and it was glowing as it went away. When he returned home, he realized that 4 hours had passed. He also noted that he had what seemed like burns on his body. And at some point, when he consults this doctor that he went and saw after meeting the journalist, um, they diagnose this as radiation burns.
Okay.
And so he has okay. So there's kind of some medical examination stuff, and here's where some of the stuff gets a little depends on who you believe.
Sure.
I've found some scattered accountings of what his medical examination actually told us.
I've never heard one of these stories to actually, there's like maybe one that I can think of where like, yes, somebody had genuine radiation poisoning and there is documentation on it. I've
Yeah.
never heard that before, except for
So
one.
in some cases, you'll just hear that he had bruising and some like abrasions and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And other cases, it's actually the radiation
Yeah.
burns.
Y- You'd think that if these aliens are like out searching for life forms to like build a hybridization program, they wouldn't like irradiate them. They would like be somehow like the technology is advanced enough that they can do all this other shit, but why would they just like leave somebody with radiation burns?
I don't know. It's one of those things that's like I feel like that's a symbol of like we need something that is a sign for having been abducted,
Right.
but also like
It's
it
sufficiently
doesn't make
mysterious.
yeah.
You know, like it's like how do you get radiation poisoning if you're out in the like
Well,
working on a farm? Like
well, and also like a lot of this kind of stuff, the whole UFO craze and like alien craze did come out of the age of like nuclear
right,
proliferation.
right.
Like we started a lot of the stuff was kind of a lot of the UFO stuff was kind of a allegorical for our fear during the Cold War and like
Right.
Russians and everything. So that also was the age of nuclear armament, and
Yeah.
it kind of all ties together into this kind of like having radiation poisoning or radiation burns being a signal of a UFO abduction kind of ties into the allegorical work of aliens in popular culture.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. So like you have the like radiation poisoning aspect of like the nuclear proliferation, but like then you could also just think broadly on like just the abduction experience is like
Yeah.
this like inability to like have control. You like something else is taking control over your life. Like
Yep.
and that's probably what it feels like to think that you could be nuked into annihilation at any time by a world government. Like it makes some sense sociologically, I guess.
Yeah. So after he returned, he not only had the radiation burns or, whatever you wanted to call it, he also had, he slept for basically a whole day after he came back, but he started to have a lot of bouts of insomnia. He was very nervous and anxious. He would wake up screaming. He would like have headaches and nausea that would continue for whole days. Um, Basically, like he kept having um, his dreams kept being about alien abduction, and he would wake up like screaming, trying to avoid being
I
captured.
wonder what that's about.
Yeah, you know, might be projecting just a little bit, of the whole things that he's been through. And he says when he was hungry, he only was able to drink a cup of coffee, after which he would become ill. I say maybe stop drinking cups of coffee on an empty stomach. But no, in reality, basically this guy had a rough time after this whole thing, and he started to like get, he would try to get diagnosed with some stuff from this doctor. Now there were the person that he met up with was Dr. Olavo Fontes, who worked at the National School of Medicine of Brazil. Now, Fontes was also in contact with the American UFO research group APRO, which is the Aerial Phenomena Research Organization. So that leads some people to believe that maybe the person who works with the UFO organization also is examining the supposed abductee
Yeah.
has a bit of
A
motives.
bias.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes I can see that.
And also like you're talking to the journalist that works for a magazine that like basically everyone that's contacted about this has a vested interest in this story being real.
Yeah.
So that is like one of the biggest things that people use to kind of debunk this whole thing
I mean,
is that there is that aspect at play.
that was the same idea with the Belgian UFO wave
Yeah.
that we talked about recently. Like the people who got control of the how the story was like put out in the public and whatnot were people who were true believers.
Yeah. So the one thing that is kind of interesting about all this stuff is like Fontes basically they didn't like publish this right away because they deemed it quote unquote too fantastical to publish. But the story did still kind of get out there and kind of spread amongst the UFO community and people in this kind of like APRO and various other kind of tied organizations.
Hmm.
Um, and eventually it started to come to light in 1958 in February, which is the earliest definitive print reference to Boas's story. Um, and then it mostly came up in a 1962 issue of a Brazilian UFO periodical called the SBE-SDV Bulletin, which I don't know what that stands
It's
for.
a bit of a mouthful.
Yeah. They also stated like there's one. Okay, I forgot. Sorry, I forgot about this. There's one other symptom that only comes up in like certain places. That is also very detailed. So let me just read this. He let's see. There were cutaneous lesions at the slightest of light bruising, which went on appearing for months, looking like small reddish nodules, harder than the skin around them and protuberant, painful when touched, each with a small central orifice yielding a yellowish, thin,
Oh,
waterish discharge.
oh God. Wait,
Yeah,
what? And where are these on his body?
just around his like his torso and stuff. Like,
Oh
yeah.
God, that's horrible.
The skin surrounding the wounds presented a quote hyperchromatic violet tinged area.
What the fuck?
So that is weird. Like I don't know if there's like photos of this anywhere. I didn't find any. But that is a thing that gets reported in
Oh,
some of the articles written about Boas.
that's nightmarish sounding.
Yeah, it sounds like it fucking sucks. So yeah, this is kind of the thing. Oh, the magazine that was popular around the time that this is a good time to talk about it was called O Cruzeiro. And O Cruzeiro is a like sci-fi periodical as far as I can tell. And this is when we can get into kind of like some kind of weird timeline stuff. So
Okay.
O Cruzeiro, actually, let's start with this. Supposedly, the actual abduction took place in October of 1957.
Hmm.
We didn't get any published accounts of it until early 1958.
Okay.
In the November 1957 issue, there was a story printed in O Cruzeiro that has a lot of similar elements to the story that was then
Ah.
told by Antonio Villas Boas. Now, the theory would state that he effectively, when he told his story, effectively backdated the timing of the story so that the actual quote unquote abduction happened before this story was published. So
Okay.
that when people talk about this case, it happened in
It's
October of
no longer.
1957.
Uh,
And the story that is in a regional sci fi periodical that is read by like middle class Brazilian families basically exclusively um, tells a story not until November. So
man.
there
Okay.
is some weird timeline stuff that I can't 100% give you like with absolute certainty how it went down, but that is my best reading of all of this.
Yeah.
Is that is kind of the timeline, at least if you don't believe this story, you know?
Right.
Um and
That's so funny.
this also so he also seemed to have some details that were possibly pulled from the works of George Adamski.
Okay.
So
Maybe
there's
that's where I was noticing some
yeah.
similarities.
So you will find that. Shouts out to anyone that caught that ahead of time. There are some stuff that seemingly are in line with the works of Adamski. So it seems like this is a story that came to prominence, at least whatever prominence that it has, as a story that was mainly that was believed by a lot of people because they didn't expect a Brazilian farmer to be able to come
They
up
just
with this lavish story.
Jesus.
Uh, and
Got to give Brazilian farmers more credit.
Yeah, which is like that's such like a weird prejudice. Like, oh, this Brazilian farmer seems honest because they couldn't drum up the idea of an alien abduction where they get fucked. Like, come on, like come on.
That's man, that's so funny. And Adamski, for those who maybe don't know, pretty notorious contactee who has been discovered to fake UFO photos,
Yep.
very simply faking UFO photos. So kind of questions his authenticity there.
Yeah. So in reality, this guy was not like a poor farmer. Like he was studying to be a lawyer. He went on to become a lawyer.
Mm,
And he never recanted the story. He
mm.
stuck with it until his death. Now he didn't he never refused to talk about it, but he did stop
Maybe back off a
really
little.
pushing for
Yeah.
it after about the 60s. Um, he had kind of a you know he started becoming like a practicing lawyer that was doing other things, and it seemed to
Sure.
just be like a less prominent part of his life.
Maybe not a good look when you're trying to pass the bar.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So this is the wild thing is like this story became like popular around the world in some degree because no one expected this guy to be lying.
You just assumed.
Yeah,
Oh
which
my
I think is
god.
just pretty wild. Um, yeah, that I'm pretty sure the account that I found was written by Walter Bueller of the SBEDV, which is Brazilian UFO group, which is like one of the most exhaustive accountings of this story that you can find, as far as I can tell.
SBVD, SBEVD though, that is just too much. You could just
Yep,
Brazilian UFO group bug. It's just that easy. Just like shorten it to one of those.
yep, you would think so, but instead we get that. Maybe it rolls off the tongue better in Portuguese, but
Probably.
yeah, so this is one of the first cases of explicit sexual contact with extraterrestrials in abduction lore, and also one of the earlier cases of actually an alien leaving mysterious marks on a body. Um, it seems to also be it and Betty and Barney Hill seem to kind of set the pace for a lot of abduction stories that come
Hmm.
after it. Betty and Barney Hill is the much more popular, much more known one,
Yeah.
but this one has a lot of things that draw on that elements that get drawn on even to this day, especially when you get into things of alien human hybridization
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
Well, I swear to God, and maybe this is just one of those things because one of the things that I remember from the old UFO books I used to check out of the library and
Hmm.
stuff and pour over was like I remember there were a couple stories of abductions that involved sexual contact, which I didn't quite understand at the time because I fourth or fifth grade, but I knew that like they were like making babies and stuff.
Hmm.
And I distinctly so maybe that's where the memory of the alien like touching its stomach and pointing up comes from. Or maybe that's
It,
from another case
I mean,
too.
if you read stuff about like somewhat notable UFO cases, you very well could have read something about this case back
Yeah,
in that time
maybe.
period and just not remember the name of Via Boas. And here's just like an interesting kind of postscript to the whole thing that I just think is interesting. Carl Sagan, in a book entitled Demon Haunted World, kind of brings the idea of abductees having sexual encounters with aliens to kind of in line with ancient tales of s- dating back all the way to like Sumerian folklore, where demons would have sex with humans,
Hmm.
and kind of tie these things together as like the aliens being the modern interpretation of like fucking a succubus
Right,
effectively,
right.
you know. And I think it's just interesting how like you can look at that of like so he's tying together stuff like of Thomas Aquinas and Saint Augustine with succubus and incubus all the way up to a Brazilian man in the 1950s seemingly having sex with an alien.
And now we got furries who want to have sex with wolf people. Not
Yeah.
wolves, wolf
No, no, yeah,
people.
not well, no, we're not. There's
I
a difference between furries and
I
zoophilia.
know. I'm just clarifying for the listener. I guess it does make me wonder what it is about being a human being that makes certain people want to have sex with inhuman things. like humanoid maybe,
Yeah.
but like with distinctly non-human features. Why do they want to fuck demons
I don't really know. I feel like there is something
and
of like
aliens?
there's a lot of power stuff, like power dynamic stuff that goes in play of
Yeah,
like
yeah.
of being of like sexual domination.
Something that is like more powerful than you, such as a demon or an alien that has like psychic powers or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That for
yeah,
some reason you just like they rub this stuff over your body and for some reason you got aroused when a naked woman came up and hugged you. Like
yeah.
that
Classic.
that's one of
That's
the
a
things that
classic.
really kind of sticks out to me in this story is like he's kind of confused as to like why he was experiencing this pretty normal physical reaction. Now like there is look, we've made a lot of jokes here. There is like an element of consent to this that is a little fucked when you kind of get into it. So I understand like having why like him trying to process why he had sex with this alien and so like putting it under this whole idea of like some sort of alien gel or fluid that makes him kind of act outside of himself a little bit adds to that in some ways, but he never like I'll just say this, in all of the accounts that I saw, he never talked about it as like assault, you know?
Right.
It was always him having a sexual relations with
Well,
an
and
alien.
and the thing is, if you want me to be real about it, I'm really kind of interpreting this story less as him having sex with an alien and more his fantasy
Yeah.
of wanting to have sex with an alien.
So yeah, I just like I feel like that's at least worth saying.
Sure.
Um and I don't especially when we're talking about like the dynamics of these like ancient stories of people like having sex with demons, like the whole thing with like succubus and incubi are this like you are like supernaturally unable to resist. Like
Right,
there's
right.
like an allure that you can't step aside from. And I feel like there's kind of that element, even though it is not like highlighted. It's not like he doesn't explicitly state that there's some like siren call or anything, but he does kind of act kind of confused why he was so ready to have sex with this woman.
Yeah.
So it is there is kind of an interesting like side effect
Well,
of how much this follows those kind of tropes.
yeah. Well, and that's why I'm just assuming this is more a fantasy thing for him because like you can have those kinds of weird power dynamic fantasies and stuff, but like in it, I feel like how do I say this? I feel like if you were to come out of that situation for real,
Hmm.
you would have interpreted what happened to you as assault.
Yep.
If it wasn't just like a fantasy thing for you. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a weird wire that he's like kind of
Yeah.
threading here, but like you see what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like
I mean, if you take any of these kind of alien abduction cases literally and
yeah,
talk about the actual
it's
impact that would have on these
terrifying.
people, it is a very different thing, which makes like all like there is this element of like defamiliarization almost when it comes down to like this is such a fantastical thing that you have a different reaction after it than you would normally.
Yeah.
And it's just it's I just I don't know. I always feel like when we're talking about this kind of stuff, especially with something like this, it's worth mentioning and like it really does come off as like a fantasy thing here and like
Yeah. E-
never gets listed.
Even
Yeah.
remove the sexual aspect of it. Like
Yeah.
people come away from these things will just be like talking about the amazing experience or all the whatever. If you, I think if a human genuinely experienced abduction by an alien,
Yeah.
it would be horrifying, regardless of whether or not you came back safe or not, or whether you wanted to be abducted by an alien. I think it would be too much for the human mind to handle.
Yeah, and in this case, it seems like he, other than the claims of kind of insomnia and stuff like that, this doesn't seem to have like fucked him up for life or anything. He seems to
Yeah.
pretty quickly, go back to being somewhat normal.
It did also cause his body to open pustule holes,
Yeah,
but
that is the thing that I don't. I would like to see if there's any more
I would love to
concrete
see that.
evidence of that.
Yeah.
Just because I don't know what it means by like hyperchromatic violet
Yeah,
hues around on the skin,
I don't know.
because that sounds like the boring version of that just sounds like just like bruising, but you wouldn't call it that if it was just bruising, you know?
Right. Right.
So anyway, on that note, let's go ahead and go to the big question.
Sure.
And the big question I wanted to kind of, you know, go out on kind of a light note here.
Okay.
So, if you had to set the mood for your own
Jesus.
alien hybridization experiments, wink, what would be on your hybridization playlist?
Oh God. Uh, I, I don't necessarily want to admit to. Well, not even admit. Just like look. I let's just put it this way. I remember just about all the music I've put on for real life.
Yeah.
I don't know whether I want to put that out there.
I have one very embarrassing one that I don't know if I want to put on the podcast.
We don't have to do that.
Okay.
I would like to put let me think about it here for a second.
I mean, the obvious is Linkin Park's Hybrid Theory.
Well,
like
sure.
that
Okay.
that just really like off the dome, first thing off the tip. That's what I would go with.
Okay.
You know,
that makes that one works a lot. I could think maybe it would be fun to like maybe if they're impregnating me with like twins or something, they're like, oh, you're gonna give birth, and it's weird one because your whole situation with having a dick and balls, but then you're gonna give birth to twins, and one's gonna be an alien, one's gonna be a human, and so I'd be like, cool, let's turn on Cursive's I Am Gemini,
okay,
and that could be kind of fun. I had to make the
you really had to build that one up for a very niche reference.
I've been listening to Cursive lately.
Okay,
maybe
I feel like we should maybe look at the two things that come to mind that are just kind of awkward and weird.
Sure.
Are Richard Cheese covers. His like get down with the sickness.
Yes.
And then John Carpenter scores. I feel like those
kind of fun though.
Though like some mood of those two would kind of I feel like lighten the mood and also get the mood at where it needs to be.
Okay, let me give you a real answer that is just going to go fucking. We're gonna do numbers on Twitter when I say this, by the way, and everybody's tweeting about this. Steely Dan. We're putting on some Steely Dan. Everybody on Twitter's talking about Steely Dan as if they've been a fan forever, and now I am just gonna go here and say, yeah, I'm gonna fuck to some Steely Dan. I think the joke version of that is like maybe it would be funny to like.
I don't know. I think some Blues Traveler
could be kind of fun, or like it would be really funny to like put on like a Neil Hamburger record.
What about Alien Ant Farm?
But that's just funny on its own. Alien Ant Farm would be pretty good.
Yeah. Or isn't there a band called Alien Sex Fiend?
I don't know. That sounds real. I believe you. I completely believe you. There's you just have fucking unlimited choices, and I'm trying to think of the funniest thing that you could.
If Alien Sex Fiend exists, that will be my actual locked-in answer, no matter what they actually are, because I don't think I know what this band actually sounds like.
Is it Tomb Mold that has the like alien on one of its covers? I'm pulling things that some people will not get, and my brain is blank. Look, I listened to Cursive a lot lately, okay, and let's just say I'm putting on the Ugly Organ. Okay. We're gonna get really into our emotions, and can I just say our feels?
Yeah, get in the feels.
Are doing that.
I'm gonna go with Alien Sex Fiend, which Spotify claims is one of the earliest groups to be labeled goth rock, and are among the genre's most theatrical acts. So I think that really is the way we want to go. And hey, I'm gonna go listen to some Alien Sex Fiend.
That sounds amazing. Honestly, I have not heard of Alien Sex Fiend. I'm gonna put on Type O Negative.
God damn it.
I'm sorry. I could list them.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. It just turns into us making like just trying to outpull each other on like weird things you can have sex to.
I'm gonna put on the Green Room Rockers.
Oh my god! If anyone likes fucking like Cleveland local ska heads, Green Room Rockers. Jesus.
I was looking for obscure polls, and I think I found it. Go ahead and everybody Google these band names and get back to us on how funny this bit is.
I'm gonna listen to Rat Storm, but only after their vocalist got put in prison, I think, and they had to.
What?
Remember, we saw them live, and they didn't have their lead guitarist / vocalist, so the bass player was kind of singing over it.
I don't remember them going to prison.
They opened Circle City Ska Fest 2.
Okay.
And
the
I remember
singer
that was gone. I think for some reason like that. And
oh my god.
And so they had to improvise who was going to try to sing. And it was one of the only musical endeavors that I've ever walked out of.
That was weird. Yeah, that was not
come back later to see actual bands I wanted to
Do you
see.
remember when we went to see Code Orange Kids before they were just Code Orange, and
Yeah.
a local like metal band opened with the smallest, angriest man I've ever seen.
Yeah, the singer was about 5 foot nothing.
Very
and,
incredible.
had the longest mic cable ever devised and was out in the crowd just like getting in
Going
everybody's
nuts.
face. That was the show that I got decked into the wall.
Yeah, I
I got
remember
fucking
that.
body checked
Yeah.
into a
It
wall
was a good show.
during Full of Hell's set. Yeah,
It was a
that
good
was
show.
cool. So yeah, that's really the end of this story. That's about where we're gonna end. Alien
shit.
sex fiend and getting body checked into a wall. Now, if you want to follow more of this show and find more of our episodes, you can follow us on Twitter at IGW Podcast.
You can follow us on Facebook.com/It Gets Weird Podcast.
And we're on all your favorite podcatchers, from Stitcher to Google Play to Apple Podcasts to Spotify. If you listen to podcasts somewhere, look up It Gets Weird, and we're most likely there.
Email us at itgetsweirdpodcast@gmail.com. We will probably read your story.
Yeah.
Most of the time we will read your story. It doesn't always make it, but we do always eat the email regardless of whether or not the story gets read on the show. So please send us your stories. And we, or I mean, honestly, it doesn't have to be a story. You can email us about whatever. You can ask us.
Yeah, you can email us to try to get us to review or read your weird book.
Oh God, please
we got a
stop
lot of
doing
those.
that. Actually, that one I want you to please stop doing. We get a lot. That is a very weird little thing.
I don't
that
know
we
what
get a
threshold
lot,
we've crossed.
I
but
don't know.
We do get a lot more like blind pitches now.
And it is almost entirely people asking us to read their books.
Yeah.
And look, I'm sure your book's fine, but please, no more book talks unless you want to email us about a book you thought was cool that you didn't write that has to do with.
Oh yeah, recommendations are
recommendations are great. So yeah, email us, patreon.com/itgetsweird. We have a $2 tier and a $5 tier. At the $2 tier, every other week, you're going to get It Gets Weird TV. That is our series that we're going through right now. We're watching Gravity Falls at the moment. And we discuss that show on that show. At the $5 tier, you get that show plus every other week, in addition to the It Gets Weird TV, you get our other bonus shows.
I'm gonna make you write this down in a way that like makes sense.
I should probably come up with a way. Look, the point, the fucking point is, if you donate at the $5 tier, you get It Gets Weird TV plus other bonus shows. So you're getting content every week. Whether or not you're donating the $2 tier or the $5 tier, you get access to our main show 2 days early, and you get access to our little Discord chat that is not actually little, so I don't know why I said it. We got a big chat going there. Lots of people in there now. So please donate. And we also have a $1 tier where you don't get anything out of it. You're just kind of like kicking us a tip saying, hey, I like your show. Thanks for doing what you do. So please donate if you can. If you really love what we do, we do it all for you. And if you can't donate for whatever reason, totally understand. But please tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell your congressman all about It Gets Weird podcast so that we can get word of mouth, spread our show around to everybody in
The world.
I'm going to say everybody in the world, but also more specifically, a lot of people in American.
I want at
politics.
least one member of Alien Sex Fiend to have listened to this podcast.
I want Alien Sex Fiend to listen to it. I want at least one member of Congress, regardless of party, to hear this show.
Oh, fuck.
I think that wraps it up.
Yeah. All right. Thank you all for listening. This has been It Gets Weird. I've been Nile.
And I'm Kyle signing out.
Peace.